Wendell Berry has said that the world cannot be discovered by a journey of miles, no matter how long, but only by a spiritual journey, a journey of 1 inch, very arduous and humbling and joyful, by which we arrive at the ground at our own feet and learn to be at home. Let us take a spiritual journey together this year, a pilgrimage of learning to be at home. Together we will leave the safety and comfort of the familiar and test our mettle in an arduous and humbling and joyful journey. It will be difficult at times, but we'll face the unfamiliar together. There will be times of grieving to release what we've lost, and times of celebration to renew our resolve. Through it all, we will learn together to widen our horizons, deepen our hearts, and release our limitations so that we might know each other and ourselves anew.
Good morning, everyone. Mary Lou and I have been enjoying watching your faces for the past few minutes. And boy, won't it be wonderful to be able to see each other in person. And we are making more and more chances. As you know, the choir is now gathering, and Chris Parsons and others are going to be making us very fancy masks. So stay tuned, stay tuned. This morning, with the sound of the bell, let us celebrate the survival of the Yavapai people. At great odds, may we celebrate their existence around us and how their culture draws us into greater connection with this beautiful land. Let us open with the traditional names of the 4 groups that make up the Yavapai we know today. The Wipukepas, the Tokepayas, the Cuevkepayas, and the Yavapai. This is their music and their world. And each morning, it is a tradition for Yavapai to greet the sun and to feel it filling them with new life. Let us feel ourselves filled with new life.
Good morning and welcome to Granite Peak Unitarian Universalist Congregation in Prescott, Arizona. Murphy's Law, my internet stopped at 9:45 and it came back at 9:53. I'm Mary Ann Erickson, Stewardship Chair and your Worship Associate today. We extend a warm welcome to all. We're really glad that you're able to join us, and we hope you're happy and in good health. We want to stay connected. So please join us for the breakout rooms after the service. And this will give us time to chat with members and friends in small groups. If you are joining us for the first time, please visit our website for more information about Granite Peak Unitarian Universalist Congregation. Our website is at prescottuu.org. If you are, this is the mission statement of our congregation. We are a compassionate spiritual community that celebrates diversity, nurtures the personal and spiritual growth of all ages, shares our gifts, promotes justice for all, and serves the world we live in. We extend our thanks to all who contributed to the presentation of our service today. Reverend Patty Willis, Heather Knowles for technical direction, Mary Lou Prince for music direction, and our hardworking, wonderful choir. These are our announcements today. Although we are physically apart, we are still in community, and we continue with some of our meetings and activities via the internet. So please continue to check the Weekly Peak email newsletter, our website and Facebook page for announcements of events and gatherings, and join our special regular weekly Zoom meetings. Today, there is a special website, Google Docs, and Zoom workshop after the service. Use the link in the order of service to join up. Contact Mary Ann Clark with questions or for help. We encourage you to join the Wednesday Granite Peak Politics and Religion Forum at 10 a.m. on Zoom. Also, the Wednesday book review and discussion of How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi at 2 p.m. and Friday lunch with Reverend Patty at noon. You will find connection information and other announcements in our order of service today. The children's service is at 11:30. Also today is the first day that the pre-K and elementary faith development program called CART UUNs will be streamed at 10 a.m. right now on Zoom. If you have pre-K through sixth grade children, please think about joining this very creative and fun program with us. Please contact Bev Bostrom at bevbostrom@mac.com for the Zoom link. Reverend Patty will be at the congregation's backyard at 3 p.m. today for conversation. Please remember our at-risk members and friends during joys and concerns, and contact Nancy Beeson if you are in need of any help from the caring team. Empty Bowls News. Final totals are not yet in due to the amazing support of area restaurants, including El Gato Azul, to continue the sale of bowls to provide more funds for area food banks during this very difficult time caused by the pandemic. But a little bird told me that the total proceeds are expected to be at least as good as last year's, and that is really good news. Regarding the services auction, we are preparing that. Our congregation's biggest fundraiser will be held online after the election in early November, over a period of 8 days. And it will feature items, services, vacation trips, and food specialties prepared and donated by members and friends. Please consider offering an auction donation. There is a link in today's order of service and also in the Weekly Peak email letter, and we'll continue that. There's this link for the online auction donation form, and it goes directly to our auction team when you decide to donate to the auction. Now for our chalice lighting. A Fire in the Universe, adapted by a chalice lighting written by Sean Trepp. Our chalice reminds us that the fire within ourselves is the same fire that illuminates the universe. It is our reminder that all is connected, even though the space of the void is vast, and our experience here is but a blip in the cosmic timeline. The flame is our promise that in our smallness and our short time on this earth, that we live intently and deeply with love for one another, with honesty and integrity, to be guided by rational thought and critical thinking, and with a sense of shared responsibility. For, as the late astronomer Carl Sagan reminded us, this pale blue dot on which we live is the only home we've ever known.
Good morning, everyone. I welcome all who are here and all who are on the edges, disliking Zoom, not hearing this, and all who are tired and wishing that they could close their eyes and wake up to good news on November 3rd. Isn't this the longest month ever? You are all welcome here. I see a few heads nodding. Let us breathe together this morning and extend our welcome ever outward. At the General Assembly for Unitarian Universalists this summer, we gathered to do the work of justice. And at the center of that was considering differently the landing of the Mayflower in Plymouth 400 years before, and to think of ourselves in solidarity with the Mashpee Wampanoag people who welcomed the Pilgrims and are at this time fighting to retain their land. And today, as Unitarian Universalists of Yavapai County, Arizona, people who love the beauty of this land, we are called to understand the people on whose land we live and hike and kayak and look out at the vistas that call us to wonder and awe. Let us call in the beauty of Watson Lake, Lynx Lake, Granite Mountain, which is a place of protective mountain spirits for the Yavapai, mountain spirits that drive away fear. This is a time we need that granite mountain. Let us hold together the manzanitas, the ponderosa pines, the deer and the javelina, the mountain lions, the bobcats, the sky and its magnificent clouds. I invite you now to say the places because I could not name them all, and you can say things over again. The places, animals, things about this place that you love. Let us say those things into this silence. Thumb Butte. Thank you all. I wish I could hear your voices. Wouldn't that be wonderful? All of these places that we mention have been beloved for centuries by the people we call the Yavapai. And today, joining with Unitarian Universalists all over the United States and Canada, let us sing of the fire of our commitment to be in solidarity with the people who were here long before we arrived. Let us sing the fire of commitment.
Still to witness to the life of liberty. our future can begin. From the dreams of youthful vision comes a new prophetic voice, wasting lands of deeper justice, built our heart of ages joys. When the pride of forgiveness sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion need to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, when our promise finds fulfillment, and our future can begin.
Let us say together our covenant. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve others in community. Thus do we covenant together. And now I invite you into our time of joys and sorrows. Let us listen to the bell and think within us, remember those who we are holding on our hearts in joy or in sorrow. And I first, even before I do this, I want to give you a message from Karen Anderson, who texted me this morning. And she sent these words from from where she is in Las Vegas. She said, "Please pass on my deep gratitude to our congregation for loving and healing thoughts." And then she said, "I have to go. Physical therapy is here." So let us continue to send her our healing thoughts. And now, with that reminder of the love of this community, let us enter into a time of meditation. Let us feel the earth beneath our feet, this earth that has held us all of these years, this earth beloved of the Yavapai people. The world at times seems to be shifting. Let us feel its steadiness under our feet. In our community, many things are happening. Thomas Massey, who comes most weeks to the Time with the Minister, a veteran who would love to join us in person and doesn't have access to Zoom. He is now in the hospital in Phoenix, recovering from back surgery. And I'm in touch with him, as is Jackie Hurst, and he would love your prayers for his healing. Connie Tobiah is going to be leaving our community. I say this in sadness and happiness that she has found a place in San Antonio that seems like it will be a new life for her. We also hold Pocahontas and Jean Gertler, who are relocating to the East Coast where they can be near family. Again, sadness for our loss and happiness for them that they have found a place that will be safer as Jean is struggling, and this is a difficult time for care. Please join me in a time of silence so that you can bring the names of those who are in your personal lives, you are holding in your heart. happiness for Deb Walter, who is feeling very happy. And for so many of you who I know are struggling and are feeling good at the moment. And for all of those hearts that are really having trouble at this time of waiting, this time when there is so much fear-mongering, and I am at a loss for words. And whatever it is that is going through our news, whatever that word would be, dysfunction, maybe. But today, together, please join me in a spirit of meditation and prayer. Spirit of life, we give thanks for those who are recovering, for those who have found a home that feels safe and welcoming in another place, for those of us feeling the loss of those people, for Karen Anderson, who is recovering from a very serious accident, but is in good spirits and is surrounded by her beloved people. We especially hold today the Yavapai people, their love for this land and their tragic history. We hold their resilience. We hold their survival. We ask together for wise leadership, for humor, for energy, for that sprint to the end of the month, for those of us who are working so hard, and I know there are so many of you who are. May you find that energy. Among us, many people are suffering quietly. I ask you to let me know of your suffering, because perhaps another human could help. I ask that comfort surround you. And we ask too that the work of Keep Prescott Together is able to identify those who are undocumented in our community, who need our help, who are out of sight. May we have wise minds that can work to dismantle the systems of oppression. May each of us feel the presence of this community when we are alone, when we wake in the night and wonder about all that is happening in the world. May we feel the anchor of this place, of the love that is palpable in this place. Amen, and may it be so. I invite you now to sing with me, Walking, Walking with You. Walking, walking with you, walking with you is my prayer.
I would also like to add to our concerns the family of Amber Faith, the campaign manager for Judy Stahl. Her father was killed in a violent shooting in Dallas, Texas on Friday. Please keep her and her family in your thoughts and prayers. This is the time, we're now into the offertory, and this is the time in our service when we normally gather the offering in the sanctuary. Let us embrace the feeling of connection and community that we have when we gather each week. Let us remember that this congregation, its staff, and its programs are supported by your generosity. We also give back to the greater community through our Seeds of Support program. During the month of October, our recipient is Keep Prescott Together, which is leading critical migrant justice work here in the Quad Cities area. Keep Prescott Together is committed to empowering the Latinx community of Yavapai County and creating lasting change on a local level. Visit their website at keepprescotttogether.org. To give during this distance time, please go to prescottuu.org On the bottom left-hand side, click the word donate to contribute to PayPal. The link is also available in the chat on this video. Please note in the comment box or on the memo line if you mail in a check that the funds are for your pledge or seeds of support or a donation if you don't have a pledge to Granite Peak. What is given in love is received in gratitude. Blessed be. And now Reverend Patty is going to introduce the Spanish version of Spirit of Life, hymn number 121, before we sing together with the choir.
Thank you, Marianne, and thank you for mentioning the death of that dear father of the woman who's working on the Judy Stahl campaign. I neglected to mention that, and I thank you for stepping in. I hope all of you can wave when I forget, because I'm telling you, my memory is about up to here right now. So thank you. With many members now who are studying Spanish, and with our desire to work towards immigration, I wanted to have us sing Spirit of Life in Spanish. These are the Spanish words, and I'm going to say them and invite you to repeat after me. Fuente de amor. Ven hacia mí. Y al corazón. Cántale tu compasión. Sopla al volar. Sube en la mar. Hasta moldear. La justicia de la vida. Arraigame. Libérame. Fuente de amor. Ven a mí. Ven a mí. And please sing out. Nobody can hear you, and singing is so good for your health.
Spirit of life, come to me. Sing in my heart the streams of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots boldly closed, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
From the Exodus Trail in Arizona Highways by Annette McGivney. In December 2016, about 140 years after the forced march of the Yavapais from the fertile Verde Valley to the harsh desert lands of San Carlos, Jordan Lewis, a high school-aged Yavapai, was literally walking in the footsteps of his ancestors. The first leg of the trek between Clarkdale and Camp Verde was nothing like what the Yavapais and Apaches experienced in 1875. Lewis and his partners walked down paved highways, through shopping centers, past restaurants, and around housing developments. But as they headed southeast into the Masatzal wilderness, the terrain became remote and rugged, virtually unchanged from 140 years before. As Lewis trudged up 5,800-foot Hackberry Mountain and across Hardscrabble Mesa, he thought of his ancestors and how different his life is today. They had such a strong mindset, he says. They never knew when they were going to stop. They could only rest when the cavalry let them. But I got to walk without anyone looking over my shoulder. I am free. I have shoes. Please watch Yavapai Lands. Even the creation story of the Yavapai people is a story of survival at impossible odds. Long, long ago in the beginning, people lived in the underworld. A great tree grew there, which pierced the sky of the underworld, and some people climbed up the tree into the world at a place called Ahangaskiaiwa, now known as Montezuma's Well, near the Verde Valley and Sedona. The people, though, who climbed out forgot to close off the hole, and water flooded out, killing all the people. Someone, though, had hollowed out the tree, and a woman named Widapokwi found it for refuge and then sealed up the opening with pitch. She took food with her for a number of years, and she took birds with her. She was told not to look out until the log lay perfectly still, which means that for several years she was rocking and moving in the waters in complete darkness. Then the stillness came, and she opened the hole and found that the log had stranded on top of San Francisco Mountain, because the water had not fully gone over the mountain. Widapokwi got out, and she walked around. And then she walked down the mountain into the red rock country. When she lay under a dripping spring, she became pregnant with a daughter, who then, after the daughter grew older, became pregnant with a son, a superhero by the name of Skatakamcha, whose stories are marvelous. And in these beginnings, we see the close ties between the Yavapai people and a specific place on this earth, for all people are said to come from this woman, Widapokwi. As one writer said, this stretch of earth gave birth to them and continued to give them life. There are a few dates suggested as possible times from which the Yavapai, those 4 groups that I spoke about in the very beginning, that spoke the same language, there are a few dates suggested about when they entered this land, from 700 AD to 1100 AD, and their vast ancestral territory measured some 20,000 square miles, more than 1/6 of Arizona. They had what they called rancherias, or camps, in various places. For example, they had rancherias and they gathered mezcal near Pine Mountain. And the Mingus Mountain and Black Hill areas were sources of juniper berries, piñon nuts, and acorns. They also farmed and hunted rabbits and rats in this area. They loved the pack rat or wood rat. I'd have to keep Bruno very hidden. The Verde River was a resource rich for the Yavapai, where they had rancherias, or these small encampments where they would hunt, from which they would hunt deer and quail, gather mezcal, prickly pear, berries, and they utilized the yucca plant and mesquite. In Chino Valley, they hunted deer and antelope. They had camps and grew maize along Big Bug Creek. At camps at the Date Creek Mountains, Peoples Valley, and near Turkey Creek and Black Canyon, they hunted antelope, deer, and rabbits and gathered saguaro fruit, walnuts, and mesquite beans. Acorns, manzanita, mescal, and walnuts were gathered near our very own Granite Mountain. They ranged over a large territory, moving from one camp to another according to the season, by the time of ripening or of flood or of the ripening of wild foods and the locale of the game that they hunted. These Yavapai people, they spoke a language of the Yuman group, as did the groups to their west of the Colorado, the Cocopa, Quechuan, Mojave, and Chemchueve. Their languages were different dialects, but mutually understandable. But on the east, the Yavapai were bordered by the Apache, who were of a very different ethnic origin and spoke a language belonging to the Athapascan stock, totally unrelated to the language of the Yavapais, as different as, say, French and Hungarian. And until 1820 and the coming of the white settlers, their lives remained relatively unchanged. Two elders, Yavapai elders, living in the McDowell Reservation, Mike Harrison and John Williams, whose faces are imprinted so much like my great-grandmother's was, with smiles and laughter. They repeated over and over again in their oral history that their people were not Apache and that the Yavapai had been defenseless against the pistols and rifles of the US Army and white settlers. They were often targeted because they were mistaken for the Apache, who were more aggressive against the white settlers and army. But I want to tell you this because I think you might get confused as I have been. There is a group called the Yavapai Apache. It's one group that's centered near Montezuma's Well, and they have a large casino there, and you will see Yavapai Apache. This is the one group that holds both ancestries and keep both languages of the Yavapai and the Apache. So I'm wondering now, getting back to ourselves, I wonder if you have a tragedy in your family history. Because in the group that gathers to talk with me on Sunday afternoon at 3, many of the people who gather have tragic stories from their ancestors. One of the people who gathers has the tragedy of many family members being murdered in the Holocaust. And also there's someone who gathers whose family, many people were killed, and he experienced a concentration camp in Yugoslavia for people of German descent after World War II. And one who gathers there has a history in his family of the enslavement that began in this country 400 and now 401 years ago. And we tell these stories to each other as important stories, as part of who we are, to explain ourselves. And in the 1970s, two Yavapai elders, Mike Harrison and John Williams, whose song you will hear later, they were afraid that the history of the Yavapai would be lost. Their history was an oral history, and until that time, it had been written down by a Yavapai by the name of Ho'omothia, or Mike Burns, who knew English. He had written that down in a journal, but that journal was never published until recently. It was sitting in the Charlotte Hall archives, and they did not know about that journal. And those two Yavapai elders wanted their story to be told. So they called upon a friend of theirs who then contacted ASU, and an anthropologist who also has an extremely interesting history, who is from Vienna. Her name is Dr. Sigrid Kara. She worked with these two elders for many years, and out of that oral history was created a book that I highly recommend. And I'm going to have all of these books in the chat at the end of the time. But before, and also I wanted to let you know that when she died, in fact, all three people, these two elders and Sigrid, died not very distant times from one another. And she is also in the burial grounds of the McDowell Reservation. But on the day they first met, they told the stories of these two tragedies that are so important because they thought she had to understand those first. These are the stories. In 1872, up to 200 Yavapai, the numbers are very different in different histories of this, but up to 200 Yavapai were killed in a cave that was known after the tragedy as Skeleton Cave. It's in the Salt River Canyon. Many Yavapai had gone there to be safe because the cavalry was coming through. But a young boy of 8 or 9 years old named Homothia, who was later known as Mike Burns and was the man who wrote the history sitting in Charlotte Hall, whose mother had been killed by soldiers a couple of years before, and he was the caretaker of his brother and sister. He was captured by the army and he was coerced into showing the soldiers where his family was hiding. He also, with the soldiers, were Apache and Pima guides. This massacre destroyed much of the knowledge because knowledge was not written down, it was held by people. It also turned a cave, which had been a place of refuge and beauty, into a place of cruelty and carnage, as happened to Jewish people living in Poland and Lithuania, and the many places connected with the Holocaust. Tragedy shifts our relationship to our homeland. And having an oral culture handed down through family systems, the loss of elders was extremely important to them. That loss cut families off from ancestral knowledge. And then the second tragedy happened only 3 years after that. The Yavapai people, having been told that they would be able to stay in the Verde Valley, they were forced to march to San Carlos, to the land of the Apaches, and live in a camp that had been designated for the Apaches because of their armed resistance to the US Army. On that walk to San Carlos in the winter, with many of the Yavapai without shoes, without proper supplies, cut a great gash in the history of the Yavapai people. Food ran out after a few weeks. Women who gave birth were forced immediately to keep walking. There was great suffering. And then for 25 years, the Yavapai worked to return to their ancestral lands. But 25 years is a long time. Many people died on the march, and then others married Apaches. Many made a home in San Carlos and found it difficult to return. And according to oral historians, again, much knowledge was lost. The ways of the rancherias, of living and thriving on the land of the ancestors, and returning to a land that had then again been diminished in size. These two tragedies are stories that we must hold sacred in order to be in relationship with this land and the people who lived on it peacefully for centuries, if not a millennium. And yet, In spite of these tragedies, you will see that 2 of the books that I read for this are entitled The Survival of the Yavapai. For in spite of these tragedies that threatened to annihilate Yavapai culture, they survived. They are surviving. Jordan Lewis, that high school aged Yavapai who is literally walking in the footsteps of his ancestors, looking back, one of his favorite entries in his journal was recorded at Theodore Roosevelt Lake when he was camped next to a pond that was bustling with ducks. He wrote, "Definition of strength, having the power of physical and emotional strength to overcome within yourself what seems unbearable." Given our current times, I'm going to read this again. Definition of strength, having the power of physical and emotional strength to overcome within yourself what seems unbearable. The Yavapai have much to teach the world of resilience and courage and the healing of the herbs that grow in forests, mountainsides, and to the sides of rivers, where many of you are biking by them or walking by them. The Yavapai stayed in community, even with that young boy, although he was bullied. The young boy who directed the soldiers and scouts to the cave called Skeleton Cave. The Yavapai believe in the power of singing, praying, and dancing. And I wonder if you have ever wanted to change the landscape, for singing can be that powerful. On a morning walk on Friday, a woman was walking towards us on one of the sloping roads in our neighborhood, and she said, "I've noticed that every year this road gets steeper." I wonder if some of you have had the same noticing. Well, in Sedona, there is a legend of a mountain that used to be much taller. The Yavapai say that they sang it smaller. They sang it down to its present size. You could talk of erosion, but I believe that would diminish the beauty of this image and the very real power of song to lift us and mold us in new ways. I wonder what our singing and praying could do to transform the frightening political landscape around us, or at least our perception of it. This is the time to sing and to pray and to dance. When we are feeling heartsick and afraid, let us sing. Whether you sing where no one is listening or masked on Saturday with the choir, and we are accepting new members, let us recognize what the Yavapai knew, that song can change everything. Ask the choir, they will tell you. Our practice last night made us feel so much better that Mary Lou and I improvised a song for Louie as we were fixing dinner, and we sang it at top voice before we realized that our windows were open. So perhaps we were able to share some humor with our neighbors as well. The song we are going to sing together in closing, "My Life Goes On in Endless Song," has been sung by Quakers as they sought to make a world more just. They sung when they were incarcerated in horrible places for their beliefs. The song and dance of the Yavapai remain, even after a tragic history, and their dance, they say, is a prayer to the earth. Could our lives flow on in endless song, dance, and prayer? Together, may we make it so. Amen, and let us sing.
lamentation. I hear the peal of volunteer that hails a new creation. Through all the tumult and the strife, I hear the music ring. It sounds an echo on my soul, how can I keep from singing? But though the tempest round me roars, I know the truth it liveth. For through the darkness round me goes, something the light it giveth. No storm can shake my inmost heart, while to that rock I'm clinging. Since love prevails in heaven, how can I keep from singing? Time and tempest passing here, the bells of freedom ringing. When empty joys go far and near, how can I keep from singing? To death excel and mountain high, our thoughts together are winging. When earth and shade are undefiled, how can I keep from singing?
In respect for all that the people of this land have gone through, let us walk with respect and with care on this land. May this day be the beginning of a relationship with the history of this land and with the people under whose care it flourished for centuries. A Ute elder and dear friend, Forrest Kutch, said to me, "We don't want our land back. We want you to take care of our land." In San Carlos, the place of exile, a medicine man, Jimu Kep, was badly hurt by a bullet, and he healed himself with this song. John Williams, whose story is recorded in the oral history of the Yavapai, is singing on this recording. He is singing this sacred song for our healing. May you find the good medicine, humor, and healing that you need. May we all find a way to get through the next weeks and days. And now let us extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Blessings on all of you during this week, and love to you all.